How you doing, folks? My name's Jesse. Vlog entry number 36, July 22nd. What have I been working on? Well, aside from this being like the third or fourth time I've made this video, I've been working on the Uncle Larry instructional videos that he did with Brett Papa. And I must confess, I'm still on Sad Man, one of the first sections. And I'm there in part because life is busy, but in part because there's so much stuff in that. Like, he did this one thing where he and Brett Papa were going through chord changes. It was like a G, D, E minor, C, and Uncle Larry was using dyads to spell out the chords. And I knew, like anybody who's gone knows about dyads, but and I was like, well, it's not a chord because there's only two notes. But the thing is, when those dyads are traveling in a particular direction together in a certain way, they are implying a key and a chord. That it's in D. And I hadn't really thought of that. And he was doing some really cool stuff. So I've been doing some of the, like I came up with stuff like I was doing his thumb over stuff. You know, so I've really been working on that. And the thing is, I realized that's really only scratching the surface of that one thing because that was in the key of G. If you watched any Jimmy Bruno videos, which I'm not, like I watch it strictly for entertainment value. I'm nowhere near as talented. I don't even feel like I can reach that level of stuff. But one of the things that Jimmy Bruno does is he shows you something and then he's like, all right, practice it in all 12 keys. Well, okay, what if I take that approach, that same progression, which is like a 1, 5, minor 6, 4, back to the 5 and the 1. What if I do that in a different key, like D? And obviously you can tell by all the mistakes I made that I still need to work on that, and that's just the key of D. Then you bring in like A. And you find what open strings work and what don't. you know so it's going to take me a while. Like, there's a solid month's worth of work there, if not more, just in that first chunk. And there's 8 hours more of that. So, oh boy. you know like I tell the story, when I was a teenager, Campbell's Music tried renting Starlix videos. This was like the early 80s, so everybody had a VHS, and so they tried their hand at renting the videos. And I saw Larry Carlton's Starlix video. Now, some of the Starlix videos weren't that great, because a great player doesn't necessarily make a great teacher. But Larry was really good at explaining things. And for years, I went back and I watched his stuff on dynamics, and then like the major minor. I was going back to that, so I can see myself going back to this Uncle Larry stuff a lot. Now, what have I been working on it with? Well, I did the short of it with the Jazzmaster, but this one's getting ready to go up on the block, so I figured I wanted to document it. It's a 1998 Peavey Firenza. I picked this up in Western Maryland Music in Cumberland, 2021, 2022, something like that. It was hanging up there for about $250, and I said, "Let me just try it," And I fell in love with the neck. It's fat. It's like a Gibson-y neck, like a 50s Gibson-y neck with a little more shoulder on it. The fingerboard is great. When I got it, like there were some little pieces of paper taped on with numbers on it, right? And I think what this was somebody's Christmas present or birthday present, and they were trying to learn how to play guitar, and they gave up shortly thereafter because there's 0 fret wear on this. And the strings on it were just ancient. They were just like the rust was flaking off of them. And I said, well, let me just make sure everything works. And I plugged it in and I hit. And I went, ooh, this guitar has it, So I got it. And bonus, it came not only with the original hardshell case and the original owner's manual, but the final inspection paper, dated August 10th, 1998. Set up and inspected by D. Brady, I think. Could be a D. Kind of looks like a D. Nice little provenance, little case candy to go with it. And I think like the Firenzas have been slept on. They really have. They came in 3 different iterations. There was the single humbucker version with stop tailpiece. There was a 2P90s version with a stop tailpiece. And then there was a 2 humbucker version with a tremolo on it. In various finish types. They've really been slept on. If you play one of these, you'll just be like, I can't believe the quality of this. And I think part of the reason why they were slept on is because it doesn't say made in America on it. And I think the reason why is I think the neck and the body were made in Leakesville, Mississippi, which was the same plant that the Wolfgangs were made in. But all the hardware and the pickups, I'm pretty sure, are Godo. And, there are rules about, whether you can mark something as made in America depending upon the percentage of stuff that came from foreign countries and whatever. So I don't think it was marketed super strongly. The body shape, it's substantial. It's a substantial piece of basswood, but it also kind of looks like a Rogue Rocketeer. And I think that probably hurt it a little bit. Having said that, it's an incredibly ergonomic guitar. You got the truss rod adjuster down here, which makes it super easy to address. Fit and finish are just perfect. That's my favorite on this guitar. You know, you put a little dirt on it. Can't beat that. So I'm putting this one up on the blocks, and it's caused me to think about some things. And I really kind of had to have a conversation with myself because, as you know, this past year has been a flurry of purchases, and I've really worked on upgrading my stock a little bit. And I took a little pause as for why. Let me explain. Like, I've sold off some gear because I had some, stuff coming in. And the other day I was on Craigslist and I was looking at Craigslist in Baltimore. And there's a guy on Craigslist in Baltimore as of July 22nd who's selling off a lot of gear. And a lot of it looks really good. And a lot of it kind of really piqued my interest at some really great prices. A microfrets for under $1,000. Dane Electro DC3 reissue, $300, but $50 off if you bought more than one guitar. What looks like a K Imperial with the speed bump pickups and a vibrola on it looked great. A Gretsch 12 string from the 60s. And immediately I saw that and boink, like I was just like, ooh, I got to move some stuff. And I worked myself up into a bit of a frenzy about it. And I finally stopped and I was like, what are you doing? What are you doing? You've got a guitar collection that the 16-year-old you would just be agog over, You actually have some Gibsons. You actually have a vintage Fender tube amp. You actually have a Mesa Boogie. You actually have a Fender Strat. You've got some really cool effects. What do you need? What do you need? What are you doing? And I knew this on a certain level, but it was just like, I'm getting more stuff, but it's not making me any happier. And isn't that what we do as consumers in America? We try and fill that hole in our soul. But it occurred to me, in all the time and energy I'm spending chasing gear, I could spend that time making music, which probably would be a lot more fulfilling. I could spend that time working on relationships with people, probably would be more fulfilling. So I'm selling off gear, but I'm trying really hard not to replace it with stuff. And it's hard to do because we become creatures of habit. You get home from work and you get dinner made and you've had a long day and you just want to sit on the couch. And in these days anymore, they don't have newspapers. Our dads used to sit down and read the newspaper just to find out what was going on. Now we get online, and online knows we're there. You know, um, Sometimes it feels like we're staring into the abyss, but now the abyss is staring back, and it's making suggestions. Hey, how would you feel about this? Even if you go on Facebook, I get more ads, reverb ads on Facebook than I do anyplace else. You know, and it's enticing, and it scratches that itch. You know. Now understand, I'm saying this, and I've got a Dane Electro U1 coming in from California. That's going to be a project to work on. Uh, so I haven't given up the lifestyle. Once a guitar player, always a guitar player. But I'm in a phase right now where I'm really asking myself, what am I trying to accomplish here? You know, and I'm trying to pare stuff down and not replace it. So let me know how your gear acquisition process is going. Uh, Let me know if you've reached some of the same conclusions as I'm reaching now. And let me know how you're dealing with it, because one of the things I struggle with is, what am I doing with my time? I need to replace the time I spend looking for gear doing something else. And I just need to change my habits. And if I change my habits, maybe I'll change my behavior. That's all we can hope for, right? Anyway, my name's Jesse. I'll talk to you later.